When you're given a break-even question, the axes will already be there for you. The y-axis shows the costs and revenue that the business has, and the x-axis shows the units that are being produced. In this case, when we're talking about Susie's driving school, it's the number of driving lessons. The first line that you should calculate is your fixed costs line. Remember, fixed costs remain the same regardless of the level of sales activity in the business. They still have to be paid even if the business is closed and not trading. For example, if Susie doesn't do any driving lessons, she still has to make her fixed payment costs. If you look, see the fixed payment costs are £250 wages per week, £30 repayment for her loan, £50 insurance and tax, and £30 advertising. Total these numbers up to get the fixed costs, and it totals 360. Now let's get rid of those calculations and draw our line. Fixed costs we've already calculated are 360 regardless of the number of driving lessons that Susie takes. Therefore, the line goes straight across horizontally from 360. Don't forget to label your line, as this is worth valuable marks. The next line that we're going to calculate is our total costs line. Total costs is made up of fixed costs, which we've just discussed, plus variable costs. Variable costs vary depending on the output. Therefore, the more driving lessons Susie does, the more variable costs she will pay. We know from the question that Susie, for every driving lesson, has to pay £5 maintenance, £10 petrol, and £1 for a telephone call. That totals £16. Therefore, variable cost for Susie's driving lesson is £16 per lesson. Let's see how we can use those calculations to plot the figures on the graph. We said that for every driving lesson Susie has, it's £16. So £16 multiplied by 10, that's 10 driving lessons, equals £160. That's our variable cost. To find our total cost for 10 lessons, we have to add on our fixed costs, which we already decided were £360. When they're totaled together, that is £520. So the fixed costs for 10 driving lessons are £520. So we're going to take our pen from 10 driving lessons and go up to 520. Mine will be an estimate and yours should be much more accurate on graph paper. And I'm going to take my pen and mark 520 up from 10 lessons. And then we'll try that again with 30 driving lessons this time. 30 driving lessons multiplied by 16 equals 480. That's the variable costs for 30 driving lessons. We have to add on to that 360 fixed costs to get a total of 840. This is our total cost for 30 driving lessons. Let's plot that on the graph. I'm going to take my pen and move up from 30 driving lessons to 840. And here I'll make another mark. Okay, now we've done it for 10 driving lessons. For 30 driving lessons, let's try for 50. So it's the same process. 50 driving lessons times 16, because it's £16 per driving lesson, is our variable cost. That is a total of 800. Again, we have to add on £360 because that's our fixed costs for 50 driving lessons, and that gives us a total of 1,120. This is our total cost for 50 driving lessons. Let's plot that on the graph. And now finally, let's do that for 70 driving lessons. So the same process again. 70 driving lessons times 16, because it's 16 per variable cost per lesson. That equals 1,120. Then we'll add on to that our 360, and that's our fixed costs, add our variable costs and our fixed costs together to give us a total cost of 1,480. That's our total cost for 70 driving lessons. Let's plot that on the graph. You can see it appears here. We're now going to join those lines together. Remember, they always start from the fixed costs line, because it never starts at zero, because fixed costs always have to be paid regardless of output. So our line will join up all of the dots. And again, don't forget to label your line. This is worth valuable marks. Now we've created two lines, our fixed costs and our total cost line. We're now going to move on to create our sales revenue line. Sales revenue line is the money that Susie will get from the driving lessons, from charging people for the driving lessons. We know that Susie charges £25 per driving lesson. So to calculate how much she gets for 10 lessons, 20 lessons and so on, we multiply that by 25. This time it can start from zero, the way that the total costs line could not. Because remember, if Susie doesn't do any driving lessons, she doesn't get paid. So let's calculate 10 driving lessons multiplied by 25, because she charges £25 for each one, is £250. So let's plot that on the graph. 250. Okay, let's do the same for 30. So 30 driving lessons multiplied by 25 equals £750. Let's plot that on the graph. Here you are, and the same again for 50 driving lessons. So 50 times 25 equals £1,250 that Susie will get from sales revenue. Let's plot that on the graph. And here it is. Now you can continue to do this for 70 and even 80 lessons if you want. You will need to extend your graph. Now we're going to join the dots of the sales revenue line together. There we go. Hopefully by now you will be able to identify where the break-even point is. Here it is, just where the sales revenue and the total cost line meet. And if you look up, that's at 40 driving lessons. 40 driving lessons. So let's mark that. And don't forget to label it. Break-even point. Everything to the right of the break-even point is an area of profit. And let's remember to label that as well. And everything to the left of the break-even point is an area of loss. You should always check your calculations using a formula.